Plot ratio. Not really a status quo, but rather an ad hoc interim plan before any final decisions are taken. If I may put it more simply, Mr. Page, there are two factors to be reconciled in this problem, on which you have done me the honor of consulting me. Two main factors, that is to say. First and foremost, to put the Treasury in closer touch, physically and architecturally, with the seat of government. And this we have done by a bridge straight into Parliament itself, linking it with the central block of the roundabout, as I will demonstrate in a moment.
Hi, Sir Peter, that's good.
I'm sure the Treasury will appreciate the more direct access, so I anticipate no further obstruction from subordinate ministries. The second factor was resolving the present traffic congestion at Westminster itself. Now, here, it seemed to me essential to take a wide view of the area as a whole. Westminster is, after all, an historic part of London, and we must, of course, retain certain vestiges of former pages in our country's history.
Oh, hello, love.
Alas, you will see I have left Whitehall untouched, though as a pedestrian precinct, and retained Great Smith Street. I wouldn't at present think of demolishing the Houses of Parliament themselves either, though a more congruous and efficient building could be envisaged.
What about the Abbey?
I was expecting you to ask me about that, Mr. Page. I've had to consider yourself as the developer, the Ministry of Housing, with their increasing requirement for accommodation in central London, the Treasury, of course, and the Ministry of Transport's urgent requirement for a solution to the traffic bottleneck. Here, I am put in a quandary, Mr. Page, if I'm to make your scheme pay.
It'll need to do that, Sir Peter. Buying up all the property I can lay my hands on in the area. It's taken 22 million already.
Quite. And all these overriding priorities meant something had to be sacrificed. Either historic Whitehall, the Houses of Parliament,
or the
Abbey. And there's no question which of the three is most in the way of a viable and comprehensive development. A new Treasury building replaces the Abbey.
Uh-huh. Pretty about the Abbey, though.
Mr. Page, no one regrets having to make this decision more than I do, but I've been through the matter most carefully with the Treasury and other relevant ministries and with the Westminster City and Greater London Council.
I know it's the only way. Anyone can see that. It's good. Damn good.
Hello, Sir Peter.
How are you, Miss Page?
Fine, thanks. You're going to be home this evening. Oh, that looks splendidly megalomaniac. What is it?
It's, yes, I am. It's the Westminster Roundabout.
Good. I might even do some cooking. The what?
The Westminster Roundabout. It's a scheme I'm selling to the ministries.
And in due course, building for the ministries, I suppose?
That's a damn silly question.
Yes, wasn't it? The Westminster Roundabout.
Right.
Parliament. Westminster
I'll get my lads to start dismantling this.
County Hall.
If it's got to be put up in Lord Barnett's office tomorrow morning.
Daddy, you're not actually going to build this.
I should hope I am. I'll get young Fitzgerald on the phone and fix it with him.
I'll see one of my juniors over to help.
But what have you done with the Abbey?
I've got rid of it. Why?
But you can't.
My dear.
Look, I know what I can do and what I can't. You don't have to worry at all. I know a lot more about how these minister minds work than you do. Well, I've no trouble. You can take it from me. The plan's as good as sold. Now off you go to your cooking.
But, Daddy, you haven't got my point.
Sure I have, love. Now, if you don't mind, Sir Peter and I are busy.
Daddy!
Get along home, Jane. Right. I'll brief myself on these figures overnight. I don't think we'll have any trouble from Barnett or the transport chap.
Not at all, I assure you.
Did I say something?
The problem is absolutely our leisure. I've been going through these honours, Deborah, and I see you've already got 2 Ks in your department.
I wouldn't want to press for another this year, though we're entitled, I think you'll find, to 3 Ks normally in the Ministry of Transport. Unless, of course, you want to make one of us into a G.
Yes, very difficult to know. I have to recommend at next week's meeting, and the Board of Trade is pressing me. I really think we shall have to make Miriam Postlethwaite a dame. She'll be leaving Inland Revenue in September. And then there's young Pedler doing absolutely splendid work in his Ministry of Statistical Department. He's got nothing at all.
It must be no easy task, Barnett, distributing these honours.
Oh, it certainly is not, especially when you've only got a limited amount. We're constantly pressing for more.
And then there's your own assistant, young Fitzgerald.
I don't think he's quite found his feet yet.
Oh, by the way, I suppose you'll be chairing that other meeting on Friday.
Yes, and I did want a word with you about that. I think it would be most unwise if any hint of the Westminster roundabout were to get beyond myself and your Ministry of Transport at the moment.
I quite agree with you. Do you know anything about this man Page and his Westminster Development Company?
Oh, average tycoon, you know.
Are you considering putting the Westminster roundabout on Friday's agenda?
Oh, no. It's full enough already. No, I may bring it up quite informally at the beginning of the meeting. Probably a spot of trouble from Challoner at the Ministry of Works, but Page has commissioned Watling, very influential man in architecture. I think he can be relied on to deal with our friend Challoner.
Watling?
Yes, he was given a K by the last government. You remember your minister used him when he wanted to put through that multiple car park scheme in Salisbury Cathedral Close.
Oh, yes, of course. A very able man.
Sir Robert Challoner to see you, Lord Barnet, the Regent's Park estimate.
Well, I'll take my leave, Barnet. I'd rather avoid the Ministry of Works until the Westminster roundabout has become general knowledge.
Oh, wiser, I think. Well, perhaps you'd like to meet Watling tomorrow morning, hear what he has to say.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Sir Robert.
Good morning, Barnet.
Oh, good morning, Challoner, my dear fellow.
You can spare a moment for the Ministry of Works at Dona Firenze.
Oh, surely. I fear no Greeks. Not from Lambeth, anyway. Yes, the Regent's Park estimate's very satisfactory. There are one or two small points that I would like to take up with you, but then they are hardly Trojan horses, eh?
And Westminster is hardly Troy.
Oh, no, indeed. Far more adaptable.
What?
You heard, Douglas.
Just like that?
Yes, darling, just like that. The blessing of the Treasury, the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, the Ministry of Transport, the Westminster City Council, the Greater London Council, and the LCC's ghost in the cellarage, for all I know.
Will you kindly explain to me how a scheme to demolish Westminster Abbey...
Douglas, darling, it isn't a scheme to demolish Westminster Abbey. It's a scheme to build a Westminster roundabout. The Abbey just happens to get in the way of it. And what is more, it's all your fault.
My fault?
Your outfit supplied the figures.
Huh?
Westminster Development Company gave your lot, Computer Services Limited, a pile of data on traffic flow in West London and on housing and office accommodation around Parliament, didn't they?
Oh, that.
Yes, that.
Well, I didn't program it. Norman did.
And on the basis of the answers your machines churned out, my father and his tame architect have abolished Westminster Abbey.
Hey, now look. We only did his sums for him. You can't blame us for how he acts on them.
I suppose not. Sorry, you know how I lash out when I get mad. Come to that, I shouldn't have sworn at him the way I did.
He is fond of you, Jane. You may have prodded him into thinking it over.
Darling, he hadn't the faintest idea what I was talking about. Oh, he's fond of me, yes, and I'm fond of him, but he's no devil.
Well, let's get to business. How to stop him.
You must be joking. Stop my father.
What we need is an ally in the Philistine camp.
Arnold Fitzgerald.
Oh, cheer up, Arnold. The importance of this scheme to the Treasury, and therefore to the public as a whole, outweighs everything else.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Bring in Watling.
Sir Peter.
What? Oh, Peter, my dear chap, jolly good of you to come and see us, and to bring this splendid model. Oh, splendid.
Christopher, I hope you don't mind, but I left Mr. Alfred Page in your outer office. I took the opportunity of bringing him with me, as he would be financing the Treasury extension scheme.
I think that the Westminster roundabout would be a more correct description.
I should rather not see him, of course. But his architects and economists have put a good deal of thought into this project. And he'd be very interested to meet you. He's a very decent chap. A bit rough, perhaps.
Yeah. Peter, I have taken this opportunity of asking Devlin of the Ministry of Transport along to have a look at your model. Quite unofficially, of course.
We had envisaged it being shown to the Ministry of Transport, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yes. He's an awfully decent chap. Devlin, my opposite number in his ministry, of course, and an old colleague. He'll need to brief his minister at the earliest opportunity.
Naturally.
I take it your friend Page can be relied on to say nothing outside these four walls. I mean, any publicity at the moment would not be in the public interest.
You can rely on that.
Arnold, bring in Mr. Page when I ring, will you?
Morning, Barnett.
Devlin, you've stolen them out on me. You know Sir Peter Watling, I think, Sir Gregory Devlin of the Ministry of Transport.
Oh, yes. I remember we met over our scheme for the multi-storey car park in Salisbury Cathedral Close. Have you heard any more of it?
Well, I've not given up hope, Sir Gregory, but there are certain factors still to be resolved.
Oh, Gregory, Watling's brought along Page of the tycoon of the Westminster Development Company. I suppose it is all right our seeing him.
This preliminary stage, maybe, but he won't divulge anything outside yet.
Oh, no.
Mr. Page, Lord Barnett.
Oh, Mr. Page, very good of you to spare the time to come and see us.
Glad to, Lord Barnett.
I'm afraid we haven't anything very up-to-date to show you in the way of office equipment. Sir Gregory Devlin of the Ministry of Transport.
Sir Gregory.
Sir Peter Watling, of course, you already know. Well, now, gentlemen, I would like to make it quite clear that this is only a provisional plan. And this, indeed, is only a preliminary meeting at which you, Watling, will outline the scheme that you want to show us, and we will, in due course, brief our ministers. But even so, we can only let you have an unofficial opinion. Well, now, Watling, will you open?
I think Sir Gregory will be interested in the traffic aspect. Now, our first problem was to ease the flow of traffic in the area. I had to take in consideration the considerable thought and money which Mr. Page's development company had already put into the project. I also had to take into account the sacrifices of historic buildings, which all far-seeing projects such as this are bound to involve. I had to think of Westminster not only as the seat of government, but as an economic unit. Now, here the Treasury must play the chief part and be in constant touch with whichever government happens to be in office, so that it may continue to hold the financial, economic, and social reins, if I may so express it. I had, therefore, most reluctantly, to sacrifice the Abbey.
What?
Now, gentlemen, no one is more aware than I am of the significance of this building, but I'm sorry to say the Abbey is expendable. There are finer great churches, Lincoln, Ely, Winchester, in my opinion, and, of course, we have Coventry.
Oh, yeah.
And for state functions in the present ecumenical climate, there is always the Catholic Cathedral of Westminster. Now, these are but preliminary plans. You will appreciate this, gentlemen, but they give, I think, a rough summary of the lines along which Mr. Page and I are thinking.
All right, well, of course, it's just a matter of economics, plain economics. Granted, I don't like the idea of pulling it down, but cash talks, history doesn't.
Well, of course, we none of us really like the idea, but then as government servants we have to take into consideration the whole future policy of the country.
Yes, I think it's practical. I can brief my minister satisfactorily on what I've heard, but I'm sure he'll wish the Westminster roundabout scheme to remain confidential until the appropriate moment for wider discussions.
Oh, quite so, quite so. Well, gentlemen, we will let you know informally about this shortly.
Right then, goodbye, Lord Barnett.
Oh.
Sir Gregory.
In the meantime, I know I can rely on everyone to say nothing.
Lord Barnett.
What? Oh, Marsh, I haven't seen you since you were seconded to Challoner. Are you enjoying it there?
Very much, sir. He asked me to give you these, the revised Regent's Park estimates, sir.
We wanted to discuss the heavy road haulage concession, sir.
In a moment, Arnold. Devlin, Challoner has not been consulted. Now, he would very much resent any previous action on our part. Most unfortunate, Marsh coming in just then. Will you leave me to handle Challoner at Friday's meeting?
Certainly.
Arnold, do you think that Marsh saw that model?
I'm not sure, sir. I rather hope he did.
Why?
I don't like the scheme at all, sir.
Now, be careful, Arnold. We are in a responsible position here. Sometimes personal considerations have to be subordinated to the public interest.
the remotest idea what you're taking on?
Yes, the ungodly.
It's not just a religious That issue. wasn't what Jane meant. Her category of the ungodly cuts right across the God-fearing and the godless. It includes about the same percentage of each.
As the man says.
Fair enough, but unfortunately it's the percentage with the power.
No Achilles' heel.
Just you try finding it.
That's what you're here for, Arnold.
Charming. It's the ungodly who pay my salary, remember? All right, I'm sorry. The desire to eat, an unworthy motivation. Look, we're not asking you to stand up in public, mate.
Just to contribute your ideas.
You're going to need more than ideas to stop the juggernaut once it starts moving. It rolls right over ideas without even feeling the bump.
Well, if we can't stop it, how about diverting it? Any ideas on that?
Well, that's more possible, I suppose. Look, I don't want to sound depressing. I'm on your side, really I am. After all, I've seen the Westminster roundabout scheme. I've seen their ghastly model, and I know what they're planning to do. And the whole idea makes me ill to think of it. I am just asking you to realize what you're up against.
We know.
Do you? Oh, you can kick up a hell of a stink. You can get worthy public figures and worthy bodies to protest. There'll be a splendid row. Ministers will stand up to be shot at. And all the time, Her Majesty's civil service, your father included, will carry on regardless. When the smoke is cleared, there it will be, exactly as planned. The Westminster roundabout in all its nauseating splendor. Oh, well. I suppose faith cuts across the godless and the God-fearing as well. All right, let's all tilt at windmills together. What do you want me to do?
Well, for a start, can't do any harm kicking up the fuss you were talking about. Worthy bodies, you said. Name some.
Well, there's the Heritage Society.
What do they do?
Well, they campaign to preserve ancient buildings, collect funds, invoke the law if they can.
Just the job.
Do you know anyone there?
Well, I have spoken to some old battle axe on the... Yes. Blakenheath, that's right, Louise Blakenheath. We needed her help once to stymie the Air Force when they tried to step on our toes.
Can't you go and speak to her again?
Now, wait a minute.
Oh, can I help you?
The Heritage Society.
Yes.
I'm looking for Miss Louise Blakenheath.
That's me.
Oh. Oh, well, I'm Arnold Fitzgerald from the Treasury. We have spoken on the telephone about that Air Ministry business.
I'm sorry, but if you want to talk, you'll have to come on the tube with me. I have an appointment in Victoria in 20 minutes.
Oh. Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
Stand clear of the gates.
Hey, what?
I can show you a typed description of the scene and a photograph of the model with a dirty great skyscraper where the Abbey used to be.
But why?
Because it doesn't fit in with their flaming roundabout, that's why.
No, I didn't mean that.
What?
Why are you telling me about it? You, a civil servant.
Because somebody's got to say no. If it'll do any good, that is.
Mr. Fitzgerald, how might I explain having heard about this without implicating you?
Well, several ways.
Oh, good.
Stand clear of the gates.
I think, Derek, it would be as well if neither of us made any reference to the fact that you've seen that model. Leave me to deal with this. I'm used to Barnett's tactics. I've no doubt that he and his fellow conspirators, for there's no other word for Devlin's part in this scheme, thought to stampede me into agreement. Barnett should have consulted me in the first instance.
That's what I thought, sir. The Houses of Parliament are our province, are they not? Any additions or extensions to them come under us.
All government buildings are the province of the Ministry of Works, Derek, and have been for the last 7 centuries. I look upon this as an unwarrantable challenge to my minister.
And Westminster Abbey, sir?
That is not our premise, except insofar as we are responsible for the maintenance of the fabric of the chapter house and the chapter of the Picts. I regard it as expendable and should use it as an arguing point, start us at rim if need be. Come then.
Well, gentlemen, we have a rather long agenda. I suggest that we get started. Devlin, will you sit on this side where my good ear is? Challoner, yes, please, sir. Thank you. Before we really begin, there is one matter which I have not put on the agenda, as it is as yet only in its very preliminary stage, but I do think it courteous to let you hear, and indeed see something of what we have in mind. Briefly, it is a plan to ensure a closer physical liaison between Parliament and the chief government offices. The second, and really the most important object of the scheme, is to solve the present unworthy congestion of traffic here in the very centre of government. And the third problem was to pay for these absolutely essential improvements without recourse to the public purse. Now, thanks to Sir Peter Watling, whose distinguished architectural career you will all no doubt have followed, a scheme has been suggested which is both progressive and efficient. Well, I don't think we need dwell on any further details at this stage, gentlemen.
Excuse me. Is this the way to Mr. Fitzgerald's office? Thank you.
Well, now, I suggest that we get on to more important matters on the agenda.
One moment, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
We are rather short of time, Challoner. Will you be brief?
I will. Sir, entirely I'm in agreement with the general principles, Chairman, which you put forward about this Westminster scheme. And since the overall project is so very much in the public interest, I'm sure you could be assured of my minister's sympathetic outlook in principle. I can also see that from the point of view of my colleagues in the Ministry of Transport, it is a most practical plan. There are, however, one or two small points so to make at this point. The first is that the fabric of the Royal Palace of Westminster is vested in my own Ministry of Public Building and Works, and I rather doubt whether my ministry would be prepared to allow any tampering, and you must call it tampering, however carefully designed Sir Peter Watling's proposed additions may be, with the fabric of such paramount importance to the nation, and so outstanding an example of domestic Tudor, albeit adapted by the Victorians, and built for the accommodation of both houses in, was it 1840 or thereabouts?
You can't, sir, now.
There's also the matter of Westminster School, which is listed by my colleagues in the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. This is an historic building. Though, being an old Westminster myself, I can fancy a more salubrious one. And its removal may be a matter of some difficulty. Nor must we forget the Jewel Tower, which my ministry has recently been at pains and expense to restore. It is just where your main artery would run, unless I'm mistaken, Devlin. I can, of course, see the practical idea of using the existing Westminster Cathedral for the functions that have been carried on in Westminster Abbey. But I think it would be necessary at an early stage for the Dean and the Chapter to be consulted.
Good afternoon.
For goodness sake, didn't anybody tell you I was in conference?
Of course, that's why I had a note sent in.
Well, I'll say you did, with the Heritage Society written all over it, and my chief has to go and see it.
Good. That's a foot in the door anyway. One thing I have learnt with the Society, the only way to squash these things is to nip them in the bud early.
Do you realise that if my chief gets to find out that your society knows about this and the press gets hold of it, that is probably my job up the spout?
And what's more important, your job or the Abbey?
Oh, Lord. Look, I will help you, but I've got to get back.
When it's over, does your chief come through here?
Yes.
That's all I wanted to know.
But you can't possibly be here.
Yes.
It would not be at all in the public interest if any hint of this scheme were to be made known at the moment. I realize I can rely on everyone's cooperation on that point. Well, now, we have very many matters. Let us take Section A, number 1 on the agenda, road haulage concessions to heavier vehicles. Devlin.
Thank you. Chairman, may I take this opportunity of bringing to everyone's attention the present regulations governing heavy transport.
Oh, it's you.
And it's still you.
Well, of course, I told you I was going to. Is it over yet? Is it
Yes, I'm afraid so. Now, won't you go before he comes?
Oh, no, I dare say the minister concerned is perfectly capable of that. Excuse me.
Lord Barnett, I believe.
Yes, but I don't think...
Miss Louise Blakenheath, sir, of the Heritage Society.
Yes. How do you do? Now, if you'll excuse me...
I don't think I know the other two gentlemen.
Sir Gregory Devlin and Sir Robert Challoner.
Of course. Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Works.
Oh, goodness me, we are well informed, aren't we? Well, now, if you'll excuse me, I'm
I
extremely
came to
busy.
see you, Lord Barnet, on behalf of my society concerning the Westminster roundabout scheme.
But how did you come to hear about that?
Does that matter?
Well, of course it doesn't matter, but the scheme hardly exists yet. It's terribly vague, you know.
Really? I understood it involved the demolition of Westminster Abbey.
Oh, my dear young lady, that is assuming rather a lot, jumping ahead rather a long way. Well, now, I'm sure that Mr.
Lord Barnet,
Fitzgerald
I'm
will
sure
find you a
you're
nice
aware
cup of tea
that
while
my
we-
society is an organisation with a great deal of influence and a considerable record of success in protecting historic buildings which are in danger of being demolished.
My dear, I respect your society and I applaud its achievements, though. I must say I had no idea it was quite so charmingly stuffed.
Well, in that case, perhaps you'll consider its views on any plans you have affecting the Abbey.
Well, of course, my dear, as soon as there are any plans, you will be informed through the usual channels.
But the Abbey...
May not even be involved. Now, it would be silly for us to get worked up until we know, wouldn't it, eh? In the meantime, I'm afraid I really cannot discuss it. Arnold, I would like a word with you in my office first thing on Monday morning. Shall we say 10:30?
Yes, sir.
I'm not convinced, Lord Barnet. I intend to pursue it.
Oh, you are quite right to pursue it, my dear. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
And you can work for that.
With the civil service, not the people in it.
I wish I could believe that there's a difference.
And who told you about this Abbey thing in the first place?
Sorry. Are you chained to that desk? Or do you think you could show me the quickest way out into some fresh air?
No, I finished for this evening. In fact, I have a date with my fellow conspirators at the Abbey. Perhaps you'd care to come too, while it's still there.
Oh, don't worry. Nobody's going to move it. We are going to see to that.
Doesn't look worried, does it?
That's because it doesn't know what it's up against.
The ungodly, in strength.
And your computer.
Oh, no. My computers just sort out the facts. They don't decide what to do with them.
Trust a mathematician to rationalize.
Nonsense. The chaps who built your abbey, they were mathematicians. Partly instinctive, but brilliant. Their maths didn't tell them what to build. They knew that. It just told them how to build it beautifully. They were in my union, and I love them.
Pi r squared to the glory of God.
Pi r squared is the glory of God.
I thought you didn't believe in him.
What's that got to do with it? We were talking about the glory. You can believe in that in human terms, but still reserve judgment on its source. Anyhow, he may not believe in me either. But I can still try to stop them knocking his house down.
What is it, Anna? What is it that this place has? Just age?
Partly.
How?
The wine in the vat, the lichen on the tile. Take away their age and they're nothing again.
This was never nothing.
That's why I said partly.
This wine was good when the grape was pressed. But don't ask me why.
Faith. Douglas's inspired mathematicians.
Faith, beauty, mathematics. And the greatest of these, not faith alone. I'm certain of that. Faith alone can spit in the face of beauty, can tar and feather her in sheds of corrugated iron. Yet they were no better than us. I'm certain of that, too.
They were better and worse. That's why. This place was built by beasts who could sing and by saints who could torture. The heaven blazed and the hell crackled. While ours
are semi-detached, matching grey pebble dash.
Oh, God. You. No, don't tell me anything. You're an angel, and you were a bitch, weren't you? You loved like a phoenix, and you hated like a vulture. Now they want to evict you. Pension you off to a museum with a label to explain you away. Pull your house down. Where the altar was, there'd be a traffic light. Where the font was, there'd be a filing cabinet. Oh, they've got it all planned. The grey men, the homogenized men who don't know heaven or hell. No good praying for their souls, my dear. They were born in limbo and they've never left it. What's it like with you in heaven and hell? I envy you. We'll never reach both.
Well, yes, I had thought of getting the British Travel Association on our side. After all, Westminster's major tourist attraction in its present form. Yes, thatch and beefeater image, quite. But there's a snag, my dear chap. The BTA is a creature of the Board of Trade. Exactly. Very difficult at the moment.
Oh, yes, Arnold, I did want a word with you. There is the question of further concessions to heavy road haulage. And, by the way, I doubt if it's wise for that young lady from the, whatever it is, society to be seen in your office just at the moment. Bring in the road haulage figures, will you?
Must admit, Derek, I expected the church commissioners to be rushing to the barricades to defeat the Westminster roundabout.
One would have thought so, Sir Robert.
However, I found them to be, shall I say, a little bemused. It appears that Barnett had hinted to them the approximate scale of the compensation the church might expect for the loss of the Abbey. So they were rather less eager to fight the scheme.
Oh, dear.
However, thanks to your sharp eyes, I was able to inform the church commissioners that the scheme also involves the demolition of number 1 Millbank.
Their headquarters.
Which put rather a different complexion on the matter.
My dear headmaster, of course I'm aware the school has stood in the Abbey precincts for the last 4 centuries, but I would have thought that a modern building on Hampstead Heath was more in keeping with your present curricular scope. Well, my minister thought... Yes, that's right, he was, yes. 1925 to 30, I believe. So you see, he has your interests at heart. Yeah, he was speaking to the Minister of Education this morning. Yeah. You wondered what, Headmaster? Oh, yes. Much bigger than St. Paul's School. And modern.
It's like a lot of kids picking sides for oranges and lemons. You've got Commonwealth relations, but we've got Ag and Fish. You've got the Home Office. Ah, but the Foreign Office joined us last night. You've got the Port of London Authority. Who cares? We've got housing and local government.
Who's got the BBC?
This is a Whitehall war. The last thing they want is for the present television cameras to poke their oar in on either side. They want it nicely wrapped up before the public debate even starts.
Then we've got to make it public.
Yes, but how? It's got to come from somewhere at the top to make a big enough splash.
What about your uncle, darling? Everyone loves him. Uncle who? Lord Mendham. He's your uncle.
Now, that's a thought.
Just the sort of damn stupid scheme Chris Barnett would think up. He was a self-opinionated little drip at school, teacher's pet, I remember, and he's a self-opinionated little drip at the Treasury. Bound to succeed.
Well, actually, Uncle, we're rather hoping you'll help us see he doesn't.
Not succeed, it's in his stars, boy.
I don't mean in general, I mean over this scheme in particular.
No, that's different.
Good.
Chaps like him succeed in general because they know how to fail in particular and come up smelling of violets. What do you want me to do?
Kick up a stink.
Ah.
A public stink.
Naturally, and not of violets either.
And as soon as possible, please, Uncle.
Why, they're not planning to knock down the Abbey tomorrow morning, are they?
No, but they are trying to get the scheme all tied up, approved by the ministries, supported by the politicians and so forth, before it becomes a public issue. Both sides are collecting allies as fast as they can go.
Yeah, and who's winning?
The chaps who thought up the scheme at the moment, hands down.
How do you know?
We've a friend in Barnett's office. Keep that to yourself, though.
Ah, a worm in the bud, eh? Good, good. I'm all for corruption on the side of the angels. You're fighting with your hands tied otherwise. You can't grow roses without compass, boy.
You're mixing your metaphors again, Uncle.
Of course I am. Only thing to do with metaphors. Read your Hamlet.
Well, how about it?
How about what?
Kicking up a stink over the Westminster roundabout.
I thought we'd settled all that. Just brief me again on the details. Give me the right kind of mud to sling. Do me the world of good having a go at Chris Barnett.
And the Westminster Development Company.
Oh, that fellow Pate. I don't mind him so much. He's only after money.
Yes, but listen, I told you.
There are two kinds of ambition. For money and for power. Power is the nastier. Money may be a means to something else. Power is always an end in itself. A nasty thing, power. Money just makes me laugh. Usually.
I thought you'd like to know, Lord Barnett. Have you ever heard of Joseph L. Faber of Houston, Texas? No, I thought you wouldn't. Oil, department store and that. Aye, loaded with it. Anyhow, he's in the market for historic buildings. And I mentioned about... Oh, no, he won't talk. He'll be dead scared someone else might get in first. Well, the Abbey is a bit of an undertaking, even for him, when you think of the cost of dismantling, transport to the States, and re-erection. But he's dead keen, and he thinks he might drum up a syndicate. We could ask the Earth. Think of a price and treble it.
Do you think the Royal Aesthetics Commission will be any help?
Should be. My lot's only got influence. They've got teeth.
What kind of teeth?
Oh, 2 royal warrants for a start. Power to call in witnesses, inspect documents, visit buildings, and so on.
Yes, but will they use them?
Louise can only try. I'm sure when she's talked to them...
Best of luck, anyway.
I wouldn't hope for too much if I were you.
Why not? Our cause is just, mate.
Yes, mate, but just causes and kind hearts are not enough for what we're up against.
Oh, Challoner. A rather awkward thing has happened. I want a word with you. I don't suppose for a moment you had anything to do with it, but I would like your advice. It seems that the Heritage Society has written to the Royal Aesthetics Commission about the Westminster roundabout.
Oh.
Yeah. How do you suppose that the Heritage Society got to hear of it? Your own secretary is perfectly reliable, I take it?
Oh, absolutely. Marsh is one of the best men I've had with me.
Yeah.
You think they may suggest a compromise of some sort, but isn't Watling one of the commissioners?
Oh, yes, he is, yes. I'm not really worried about the commissioner, as you know. We do have a hand in the appointments there. No, what really worries me is the fact that something quite so vital should have got beyond these four walls.
Tiresome for you.
Oh, Arnold, I've been thinking a great deal about you and how I can best help you. You know, don't you, that the Heritage Society has written to the Royal Aesthetics Commission and they had wind of the Westminster roundabout?
I was there when Miss Blakenheath spoke to you, sir.
Oh, quite so. Not, of course, for a moment suggesting that you would give away anything in the nature of a government secret. I expect Miss just saw the model by accident and drew her own conclusions. Nevertheless, Arnold, it does put you in a very difficult position. I realize that as far as you are concerned, there is a very genuine feeling for the Abbey and that you feel it should be preserved. I dare say that in different circumstances I would share those feelings with you, but I've been too long in the public service to allow personal considerations to stand in the way of public interest.
I find it hard to departmentalize my conscience in that way, sir.
I respect what you say. You know, Arnold, I sometimes wonder if you wouldn't be happier in a position where you did not become involved in conflicts of this sort. You know Gregson of the Weights and Measures Department of the Board of Trade. You might be very good for each other. I'll have a word with him.
Nothing wrong, I hope, Mr. Page?
No. No. That was from Houston, Texas.
Ah, yes. The eager Mr. Joseph L. Faber.
That just can't be. That many dollars. Not even in Texas.
The idea, my dear chap, is to give priority to every MP. Yes, well, you see, the new blocks could house all 630 of them. If they all wanted flats, that is. Appears to come to that. Provided, of course, that the scheme goes through.
Come on, Louise, snap out of it. So the Royal Aesthetics Commission was a broken reed. I told you not to hope for too much.
I hoped they'd fight. Well, that's their job, confounding the Philistines. Well, they're experts, Arnold. Architects, artists, and so on. A team of watchdogs with collective teeth. Oh, yes. They used their powers. They summoned your boss to bring his plans along.
They did?
Well, so they said. If you ask me, they had a drink with your chap Barnett in the Athenaeum, got themselves briefed and... Oh, what's the matter? Didn't Barnett tell you?
He did not.
Oh, that's bad. I'm sorry, Arnold. Well, perhaps you shouldn't be seen so much with me.
Oh, to hell with that. The damage, if any, is done anyway. You were saying?
Oh, what's it matter what I'd hoped? The Royal Aesthetics Commission has said its piece. It's produced its compromise. God help us. I'm instructed to inform you that my commissioners consider that Westminster Abbey is of too great a national interest, historically and architecturally, to be entirely demolished. They would suggest, therefore, that as a token representative of the whole, the Henry VII Chapel might be preserved and integrated into the Westminster roundabout scheme in the form of a traffic island.
Too brute.
Miserable bunch of accoladed hypocrites.
Oh, I'm sure they believe in their brilliant compromise.
Oh, they make me want to scream and break things.
Go ahead. I've been thrown out of far better pubs than this.
You were never thrown out of anywhere. You're much too nice. Too unbeastly. You might get thrown out of the civil service, though. You're harmless. That makes you dangerous. Sooner or later, they'll find you out.
Thank you. I just love having beautiful women telling me I'm harmless.
This is where he says, Seriously, though, and trots out the commercial. You know, Arnold, for a civil servant, you're very nearly human.
Oh, I'm much worse than a civil servant. I'm established. Seriously, though, what do we do now?
Oh, you tell me. The bulldozers will be at it before it even becomes a public issue. Well, the people who know don't care, and the people who might care don't know. Can't somebody make a public fuss about this thing?
Well, unless the government are half-witted, and I'm convinced that at least 30% of them are not, they will stick to their point over co-education. Myself, I'd make all schools co-educational from Eton upwards.
But if I remember rightly...
Learning to cope with the female mind should be as much a part of a boy's education as learning to cope with quadratic equations. It's just as important, in fact, more so. Damn sight more important to his survival and a damn sight more complicated.
But the minister has already declared that he's thinking...
Declared. We all know what the minister's declared, but what's he got up his sleeve? That's the point.
You think then perhaps...
Mark you, ministers are open books compared to their own civil servants.
But in the case we're discussing, this hardly arises, does it?
That's the point. We don't know. Half the civil service top brass may have made up their minds, or we may never know until the egg's already scrambled.
I thought you wanted the eggs scrambled, Lord Mendip.
I'll give you that one. But in some cases, it can be damn dangerous.
Quite. Well, now, to our second question.
This Westminster roundabout, for instance.
The Westminster roundabout?
Yes, you know. The ministry's idea to knock down Westminster Abbey to make room for a roundabout.
What? I certainly don't know, Lord Mendip.
There you are. That proves my point. Even you don't know. You know most of what's cooking, don't you?
Well, go on, Lord Mendip.
You haven't asked your question yet. What was it about? Comprehensive schools in country areas, wasn't it?
Aha, we're not going to let you escape like that. Did I really understand you to say a plan to demolish Westminster Abbey?
You did? But what's that got to do with comprehensive school?
Well, nothing. But this is a current affairs program, and I have a strong feeling that what you've half told us is relevant to what we've been discussing.
You're the chairman, my friend. Well, the Westminster Roundabout is a scheme thought up by the Treasury and the Ministry of Transport to rebuild the entire area between Parliament Square, Horseferry Road and Victoria Street as a dirty, great traffic roundabout, complete with skyscraper offices and blocks of flats. In the process, they'll have to knock down Westminster Abbey, St. Margaret's, and various other places.
But what stage is this scheme at?
Well, several ministries have already approved it in principle. And Alfred Page's outfit, the Westminster Development Company, have a scale model of the damn thing. It's in the Treasury right now, I understand.
Oh, please told them about that.
Daddy, what are you doing here?
It's my office, isn't it?
It's an amazing development. Why haven't we heard of it before?
Who told that old goat about the Westminster roundabout scheme?
It's pretty common knowledge.
Common knowledge, my foot. Wait a minute. Isn't he your cousin or something?
Uncle.
I see. By God, get out, the pair of you.
Daddy, please try and understand our point of view.
Do you realize what you've done?
What we've done? You want to pull down Westminster Abbey and you talk about us.
Now shut up and listen to me for a minute.
I won't shut
You'll
up.
do as you damn well told
Mr.
once.
Page, you can't
Oh,
just...
can't
No,
I?
you can't. And you can't go bulldozing history just because you've got a few £1 million.
If you've any complaints, make it to me, not to
do you
5
think you'd even
million.
listen?
Look, this is getting us nowhere.
It's getting you right
You
out of
see,
that door,
you
my lad.
won't.
It's a bit late. You've told the world. I have nothing I want to hear from you. Either of you. Out!
Daddy, please.
I said out! Yes. Speaking. No. No comment to you or any other national daily. No, look, I've told you I've nothing to say. I advise that you get on to the Treasury. Goodbye.
Ah, Sir Robert, good morning. Do go in.
Lord Barnet is expecting you.
I thought he would be.
Grab a chair. Care to look at the papers?
I already have, with interest.
Jolly, aren't they? Hence all this, I take it.
Well, now that it's reached the stage of questions in the House, a discussion does seem to have become necessary, doesn't it?
Vital. What do you make of the Guardian piece?
The Guardian? Yes. From our minister's point of view, it was on the right side, of course, but one would have liked to see rather more emphasis on the political principles involved and rather less on historical nostalgia.
Quite. But then one is being constantly disappointed in the matter of emphasis, is one not?
Even between ministries.
Such being the situation, I thought I'd better have a word with you. My minister's had a question. Will the Minister of Public Building and Works tell the House whether he had any previous knowledge of the proposed additions to the Royal Palace of Westminster, which also involved the demolition of Westminster Abbey?
Yes.
I have drafted a reply.
Well, naturally. It's quite simple. Your minister was aware.
He was not officially aware. I had not had any opportunity of briefing him.
Oh, Robert, your name came up at last week's Honours Committee meeting. I had much pleasure in recommending you for a G. You so richly deserved it. I don't really anticipate any trouble. You're experienced enough at drafting the soft answer that turneth away wrath.
I will do my best.
Ah, yes, do. There's a good fellow. Was there anything else you wanted to see me about?
Questions in the House. Who cares about them? They'll make a little bit of fuss and kid their constituents on the ball. All that'll blow over.
I'm sure it will, Mr. Page.
What does stick in my gullet? All this publicity's tipped the wink to my rivals. Those sharks at Megalith Enterprises, for instance. They've twice my capital and they're all pals-a-wells with the Ministry of Flaming Works. I wouldn't put anything past Megalith.
You have three things Megalith have not, Mr. Page. 3 months' start, sound architectural advice that they would call upon, and the support of the Treasury. Never underestimate Barnet.
They were at it all day yesterday, and they're probably still at it now. I invented an errand in...
Are they getting anywhere?
Shannon seems to be a little less aggressive. Perhaps he's weakening. Not that Barnet tells me much.
But I think you should have a showdown with him.
With Barnet?
Yes, talk to him. He's the key to it all. If he gave up, the whole thing would collapse. Well, somebody must tell him he's all wrong. And you're the nearest.
You must be out of your tiny mind.
Well, you're the bright young man around the Treasury. Haven't you some license to say what you think?
I think you're nuts. Beautiful, but nuts. I'm already on my way to weights and measures. Do you want me to put my head in the noose?
Scared of him?
You bet I'm scared. Do you think I want to risk getting the sack for telling him something he won't even listen to? If I'm not careful, I'll be through with the civil service altogether, and then where would I be? I wouldn't even be able to afford to get married, for instance.
Who'd want to marry a coward?
There, Mr. Out of the gate.
I hear there's a question on the Westminster roundabout in the House.
Yes, to the Minister of Works.
Ironical in a way.
Oh, he's an experienced hand, Challoner, and I've had a word with him.
Oh, anyway, I'd as soon keep out of it at the present moment.
By the way, Gregory, your name came up at last week's Honours Committee meeting.
Arnold.
Yes?
Arnold, I'm sorry.
Oh? What about?
What for, you mean?
What for, then?
No? Arnold, I know you're not a coward.
So you think I ought to risk getting the sack?
Well, I don't care if you do get the sack.
I rather gathered that.
Oh, hell, I didn't mean that. I meant the other thing we were talking about.
Oh? What other thing?
About a fall.
Yes?
Hell, do I have to do all of the talking?
Louise. Louise! Oh, I think I've got it. Come on. A telephone.
No, darling. All he said was, meet us in the grapes in 20 minutes and bring Douglas. Didn't even stop to ask if we could. He sounded all het up, though.
How, disaster or triumph?
Well, if it was disaster, he was taking it very bravely.
Jane! Douglas! Ah, hello. What are you drinking?
Not now. Later. Business first.
Business already?
Yes, now, have you ever heard of the Waterloo Ring?
No. Should we have?
Well, hardly, because we've only just invented it. But we are going to use the Waterloo Ring to smite the hosts of the ungodly. We are going to start a rumour.
Well, you really stirred it up this time, I must say, Uncle. All the ministries flapping like frightened hens, so Arnold says.
Good for 'em. Shake up their livers.
Splendid the way you made old Fife Robertson jump at the bait.
Well, he had to. A thing like that. Anyway, I hope it's done some help. What's the state of the battle now? Do you know?
Oh, hard to say. The issue's confused by the Waterloo Ring business.
Eh?
The Waterloo Ring. You know.
Oh, I don't. What is it?
But, I thought he was all over the place by now. The Waterloo Ring. Oh, I don't know much about it, except that it's an alternative to the Westminster Roundabout, on the other side of the river.
Is it? Very interesting. Whose idea is it?
Well, you know, Uncle, that isn't at all clear.
Isn't it?
Not exactly. You know how these things get around.
This goes on much longer. We're going to have to find a desk for you in here.
Nice of you, Arnold, but I doubt if the Treasury is quite my cup of tea.
Oh, my dear chap, the tea is quite indistinguishable, I assure you.
I must admit, though, 3 or 4 days ago, I was hoping fervently for our view to be accepted. Now I'm reaching the stage where any decision would be a relief.
Does your chief feel that way, too?
No.
Sorry. Still, this Waterloo Ring might make a difference, of course.
Yes, it might.
How do you feel about it? Unofficially, of course.
Well, I haven't had time to think out all its implications yet, in the absence of fuller details, you know.
Yes, quite. Well, I feel the same way myself, of course. But on the face of it, it seems to make sense. The Waterloo Ring would solve the through traffic problems just as effectively and provide the building space without creating this absurd fuss about the Abbey and so on.
Quite. That's how it struck me, too. Unofficially, of course.
Oh, of course.
But, George, darling, you are a journalist after all. And I've talked too much already, even if it is off the record. Oh, you're so cunning the way you ask questions without seeming to. What? Oh, I know you wouldn't. But, George, really, that's all I've heard. I haven't seen any detailed plans of the Waterloo Ring around here. I don't even know if they're finished yet. They probably are, I just don't know. I wouldn't have said anything, but... Well, I realize your paper doesn't print rumors, so there's no harm in filling in the background for you, so you're ready when it does break, is there? Don't tell Daddy, though. What? Dear George. Mr. Page's office? A personal call from Houston, Texas. Oh, I'm sorry. He's in a car somewhere in the north of Scotland. So sorry.
Clutching up my phone again. Off with you now. I'm busy.
Anything you say, Daddy?
No, Sir Henry, I realise it's not a matter for the Royal Aesthetics Commission till concrete proposals are made. I just wanted to say, the Commission was so helpful over the Westminster Roundabout scheme. I was sure I could depend on the same cooperation from you when the Waterloo Ring scheme was announced. Yes. Certainly, if it involves any buildings of aesthetic interest, of course. Oh, but I will, Sir Henry. But I'm sure with all your contacts, you can get information on it much quicker than I can. Oh, very good, Sir Henry. We both will.
Hello, Arnold. Just passing. May I have a word?
Oh, my dear chap, do come in.
About the Waterloo ring.
Yes.
Just thought I'd better say, well, you know, all these bits of information I've been passing to you about the scheme.
Oh, they've been most illuminating.
Yes, well, that is, do be discreet who you tell them to, won't you?
Oh, my dear chap.
I mean, I've been passing them on as I heard them, you being interested naturally, but I hadn't realized till today quite how high level the original idea was.
Oh.
Yes. Or so they tell me.
Indeed.
So you will be tactful.
Oh, discretion itself. Come to think of it, one might have guessed. The Waterloo ring has just that characteristic touch of imagination.
Yes, indeed.
Clapp's coffee seems to be getting weaker and weaker.
Can I give you some sugar, Christopher?
Two, please, Gregory.
Interesting, this Waterloo ring idea, don't you think, Bonnet? Particularly from my point of view, being on the Lambert side.
You don't take cream.
Hmm? Thank you, no, Devlin.
Is this scheme practicable, Christopher? It'll affect us all, one way or another.
Well, I suppose we might consider it. Oh, Peter, I was wondering whether you and Page had considered this Waterloo ring scheme from your technical point of view.
Well, confidentially, Charles, the way I heard it was that the Waterloo ring layout would give you people at COI another acre and a half. Yeah, it's right up to the main road. Yes, well, I like the sound of it, too. I mean, I know how overcrowded you are. Parking? No, I'm not sure. But if I do hear anything, I'll tell you. And you tell me anything. If you would, Charles. I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated by what I have heard. But people are so secretive.
Norman, look, it's just a thought, but since this Waterloo ring idea is floating around, don't you think we might prepare ourselves? Well, I mean, after all, we did process all the traffic flow and land utilization data for the Westminster roundabout. And if the Waterloo ring's going to replace it... Huh? Yes, that seems to be the impression. Yes. No, I know it hasn't officially, but if we're not one jump ahead, someone else will be. Yes, Norman, so do I. Good, good, we'll talk it over in the morning, right?
Well, I look to you, Sir Peter, to find a way out of this nasty business. You know as well as I do, I've sunk a lot of money in this Westminster roundabout scheme. And from all I read and hear, we've more trouble coming from these amenity societies and the like. Not to mention my own daughter and her pals.
If I may speak frankly, Mr. Page, we must look at this matter from its various aspects. There is, of course, the general consideration of amenities, the integration of traffic flow into a comprehensive development area, density and plot ratio.
Density, plot ratio, it's money I want to hear about. I asked my architect lads to consult you so that you could steer this thing through government committees, and now look what's happened.
I was coming to that, Mr. Page. I had a word with Lord Barnet at my club, and he's as much in favour as I am of this new scheme to solve the problem by removing the whole arterial transport system with its concomitant synthesis of comprehensive development into an integrated plan and putting it across the river at Waterloo.
Aye, the Waterloo ring.
Precisely, the Waterloo ring.
Wait a minute. Tell me, where did you first hear about this Waterloo ring?
Oh, yeah. Lord Barnett's office, general discussion, you know.
In his inner or his outer office?
Hmm?
It's the company my daughter's been keeping, Sir Peter. I'm not so deaf as she thinks I am. By, that's a lad to watch. Right. Now, how do you know Megalith Enterprises aren't onto it too?
Well, that's more your province, Mr. Page. All I can say is the Treasury now favours the Waterloo Ring.
Get me Morris Wayne of Amalgamated Properties. I look to you, Sir Peter, to have this Waterloo Ring thing designed by tomorrow.
Well, there's no difficulty there. One of the advantages of modern building techniques and new architectonics.
Is that you, Murray? Now, look here.
Well, I don't know if we frighten the ungodly, but by God, we certainly frighten me. Oh, I'm glad it's working in this particular case, of course, but it shouldn't. I think I'll stick to my computers.
What happens if you feed a rumour into a computer?
That depends on whether you tell it it's a rumour.
Exactly.
No, but look.
Never mind, darling. These are people. Quite different.
I'll say. You can feed a conscience into a computer.
Oh, cheer up, my old Puritan mate. This had to work.
So I said I'm glad. Well, euphoria may sustain you, but this Puritan's hungry. Coming, Jane?
Okay. Bye, you two.
See you then.
Oh, euphoria may be justified at that.
On 2 counts. The confounding of the ungodly and the discovery and prospective monopolization of Louise Blenkiron.
Are you always polysyllabic when you're tight?
If I were, I couldn't be.
Douglas is right, though.
Sheer euphoria. How's your garret cookery?
Not bad. Think it'll come to that.
Well, I'm already on my way to Weights and Measures. Can you see me standing it?
Garret it is?
No, garrets are in at the moment. Have to be pricey. Have to be a basement.
All right, basement.
Louise? Did you notice? I proposed to you.
And I accepted. Oh, you don't scare me with your basements. Besides, tradition demands I marry you.
Oh.
You slew my dragon.
Well?
As I told you, Mr. Page, modern building techniques and newly integrated outlook on planned constructional processes have created a prefabricated architecture which may be readily adapted to another site or even another climate with a minimum of technical inconvenience.
It's a quick job. I'll have my lads start dismantling this and get it over to Barnett's office in time for his Treasury conference tomorrow morning. Pity about the Abbey, though. I had Faber bidding against another lot in Dallas. I'll catch you up, Sir Peter.
Certainly, Mr. Page. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Sir Peter.
So it's Weights and Measures for you, eh, lad? Aye, well, it's all the jungle. Thing is to know your way about.
Has one ever? All of it?
No, not all of it. I know most of my bits, but there are 1 or 2 jungle paths that I'm shaky on. And to tell you the truth, lad, there's a job going in my firm for a young man, say, ex-civil service, who does know them.
Yes, Mr. Page?
Someone who can originate ideas, eh? 3,000 a year to start. Think it over.
I think fast, Mr. Page.
Oh, I know you do. That's why I'm offering.
Oh, good morning, Painswick, my dear chap. And how is the Ministry of Health this morning? What? The Waterloo Ring scheme? Oh, yes, a very great deal. You might almost say that I originated it. Oh, you have you? How do you like it? But surely, Painswick, the fact that the Waterloo Ring scheme may cut 6 feet off one end of St. Thomas's would hardly prompt your minister to oppose the scheme. But, Painswick, the whole thing is only a basis for discussion. Yes, it is a pity about St. Thomas's. But surely, Painswick, it should not be beyond the limits of human ingenuity to devise some compromise that might placate your minister. When the public interest is at stake, Painswick, sectional interests must take second place, and you, Painswick, should be experienced enough to realize that.